Hello and welcome to a book. Once again, I am so excited that you are here. Today, we have a very interesting author and guest for you. This is going to be an interview like none other. Today, we have a beautiful woman here by the name of Keadren, who is going to talk to you today about how she started the process of writing a book. And this was born out of a tragedy in her life, a tragedy that has led her to help hundreds of other people find their way through similar tragedies. Before we bring Keadren on, I would like for you to hit that like and subscribe button because, as you know, that helps our authors out. Well, without further ado, I want to welcome Keadren Petrone to our show today. Keadren, welcome. I am thrilled that you are here.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I'm very excited. I love having good, deep conversations with people. So,
Yes, and we are going to have a very productive, deep, meaningful conversation. I believe that strongly today. Keadren, tell us just a little bit about yourself before we dive into the stuff that I know everybody is anxious to get to.
okay. Well, my name is Keadren Petrone. I am a double certified life coach, and I also am learning art therapy. So I'm starting to do classes for that. Um, I also am in training to become a mental health coach, certified mental health coach as well. So I'll have several other certifications to add to the list. I just like learning. And
Yeah.
so I like trying to mesh different modalities together to see, how much I can help people and just incorporate different things because each
Oh,
person is different. I have three beautiful children. One is 24, married, and I have a beautiful grandbaby boy. His name is Luca. So I just love them to pieces. And then my two boys who are still at home with me, 9 and 7. So yeah, so I have a good family and yeah, so and then, my late husband passed January 9th, 2023. He passed from suicide. So I died by suicide, and it definitely completely flipped my life upside down. Um, and that is how I'm sitting here today, is
yes.
because it birthed this desire to strip away all the fake phony stuff that happens when someone dies. It's like people say things that they don't mean and they do things that are out of character, and there's just so many pieces that happen in grief. And yeah, I just started sharing on Facebook actually, and venting and just sharing different random things. And that's how I sort of got dubbed the Real Raw and Random Girl, because that's how I titled them, was Real Raw and Random.
Mm.
And the response was so vast. I was really shocked at how I was getting messages from people like, I've thought about doing that. And so your perspective is so eye-opening for me.
Wow.
Or, so and so, I lost so and so to suicide. And that what you're saying is some of the stuff I've been feeling but couldn't say. And like,
Mm.
so it was really, it really started something. And
Wow.
so that's kind of how it began. And then one day I just went, oh, what if maybe I could turn this into a book? So that's just how it started. So
Oh my goodness. So what a journey. Okay. So what happened then was that you had this tragedy happen in your life. And as trivial as it sounds, and I'm sure many people have said this, I'm sorry for your loss. But because there really is nothing else that we can say, right?
right.
So that's what we say when somebody loses somebody close to them, is that we are sorry for their loss.
Yeah.
So you had this tragedy, and out of your grief, you started to just post these posts on Facebook. to share what you were feeling, and the response was overwhelming. I want to tell you that you and I have something very similar in common. I spent a number of years as a counselor, and then I went into life coaching, and I did coaching for a lot of years very successfully. And so we have a lot in common.
Oh,
And
cool.
I'm impressed with all of your certifications and everything that you are going into. But I do have a question. You mentioned getting certified to be a mental health coach.
Mhm.
Was that a result of your husband's suicide? Is that why you chose to go that direction?
Actually, no. And
Oh,
that's so it's very weird, but it was probably a year prior. A friend of mine had told me about this university. It's called Light University, and they were doing this mental health coaching certification, and it was like ridiculous cheap. But she said this is a legitimate school. Like these people are really good. They know what they're doing.
is that
So if
right?
you're smart, get on that and see if you can get, if you
Hmm.
want to add to what you're doing. So I went ahead and checked it out, and I did it. Now, when he passed, it all kind of came to a halt, but thankfully they offered me an extension, so I'm still able to finish it out, which is really great. So
Oh,
um
that's exciting.
yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and you coach people. That's what you
Yes.
do. And I
Mhm.
assume you were doing that then prior to all of
Yes,
this.
I've been
Okay.
coaching for 2000 for almost 6 years now. Yeah,
Long
I
time.
love coaching. It's the most wonderful thing you can do for someone, really.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Walk them through their own process and help them succeed. I love that. I love watching other people succeed. What motivates me is when I get to help somebody else reach their goals, or I get to promote them, which is why I love doing this show. I absolutely love it because I get to help authors promote themselves. So
Yeah.
it's fun for me. I like it. All right. So then you start posting. And these posts tell me about some of the posts, some of the things that you said in those posts.
Yeah, so some things, were serious and some things were just completely random. I mean, because I remember very specifically looking for plain black shoes for the celebration of life service. And I was so irritated because every shoe had like this super pointy tip. And I'm like, who designed these? Why are these everywhere? Why can't I just find a dang plain black shoe?
Oh.
It's not pointy. I'm like, what is with the pointy shoes? So like I would number them, the real raw random posts. I started with numbering them and just sharing my thoughts from serious to funny to just whatever I was feeling at the time. And so, one thing I could be talking about how, somebody sent me a message demanding to know what happened to him, and somebody that I don't even hardly know is
Mm.
sending me this horrible, cruel message. And then the next thing I would be talking about pointy shoes and where are all the regular shoes, you know, because these are things that we think about, like
It's real. Yeah.
it's still right. And so I thought, why, when people are grieving, it's like this whole, and I have nothing against I'm sorry for your loss. Like that is a normal thing for people to say. Of course, they're sorry for your loss. That's normal. But I think it's interesting when you're in the middle of that grief process, the things that it's almost like we're in this kind of prison of, oh, we gotta put on the nice brave face, don't cry too much, cry a little bit, but if you don't cry enough, then and it's like you can't just sit in it
Mm.
and be in it, because everybody wants you to hurry up and feel better, and really that's just so they can feel better, right? Because
It
they're
is.
uncomfortable
Yeah.
that you're not your normal self, so people don't know what to do. And I just wanted to bring some kind of truth to the situation, because it felt like people were talking around it, or it was weird. And I wanted to take away the weird. So I thought maybe if I just share the different things going on in my mind, from funny to serious to really serious, maybe people could relate to that, and then they won't feel so alone, you know?
Yeah, well, it sounds like it definitely worked and it definitely helped a lot of people. But I'm going to assume that the person that it helped the most was you.
For sure. Yeah,
Very,
it
it sounds very therapeutic. I mean, that's my takeaway from what you're saying.
yeah, it definitely did, but it was also hard because I got backlash from that. People didn't like some family members got pretty angry with me.
Because they feel as if you weren't taking his death seriously. So I remember that maybe a little bit different situation, but I remember when my grandmother passed away. And it's not that I was happy that she passed away, but she had been so sick for so long. She had lung cancer. She was living
Mhm.
with one lung and couldn't breathe, and she was miserable. And it was
Suffering.
hard to see her that way.
Mhm.
So when her funeral came, I was prepared, and I felt as if I needed to cry, but not for me, for the other people around me, and I couldn't cry. I just couldn't cry. And I remember my mother asking, "Well, aren't you sad?" Well, of course I was sad at the loss, but there was a part of me that was somewhat relieved for her.
Mhm.
So other people sometimes they project their own feelings onto us, and they expect us to feel and act and think and process the same way as they are feeling and processing.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. 100%. Um, yeah, and it's I find it really intriguing that I that people are so uncomfortable
Mhm.
with grief. And even really just if we could go broader, just emotions in general. People are
Oh,
so
sure.
oh my gosh, she's crying. Stop. I mean, let's think about it. When we have a child, right, that's crying, our heart breaks when they cry. So we're like, "Oh, don't cry. Don't cry." But really the reality is they need to cry. They need
Mhm.
to have an expression of the emotion, whether it's crying, yelling, groaning, being alone,
Yes.
whatever it is you need to do. Everyone is different in what they need. And we're so busy trying to fix and like make it better that we actually dishonor their process by doing that.
You said something very key earlier. You said that really it's so that they feel better. They want you to behave and act a certain way so that they are not uncomfortable. Nobody likes to be uncomfortable. Have you ever been in a room where everybody is silent and you feel
Mhm.
like you need to say something just to break the silence? I remember
Yes.
sitting in a training class when I was getting my certification to be an addictions counselor, and we all sat down and we're waiting for the instructor to start, and he didn't say anything for about 5 minutes. Nobody said anything. And finally, somebody spoke up and she said, "Why are we just sitting here? Why aren't you speaking?" And he said, "Oh, finally." And the whole exercise, of course, was to teach us that it's okay to be silent. If we don't have anything to say, we don't have anything to say.
Right.
Right. But
Mhm.
sometimes we feel we have to. And I think that the same is true when it comes to emotions. If I'm not feeling something, but you want me to, it's
Mhm.
because you are uncomfortable with me not feeling what you're feeling.
Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And I think personally, I think one of the best things that people can do for someone who is grieving is number one, just give them a good long hug
Mm.
and say nothing. Say absolutely nothing because your hug speaks from your heart. It's everything, you know?
Yeah.
And the other one of the other best things that people can say is this really sucks. I'm
Yeah.
so sorry this happened to you and I don't know what to say.
Mm.
Just be honest. It sucks because it does. Like we're not going to talk around it. It stinks. So it's funny how people try to come up with these like kind of frou-frou words and make it sound good because it makes them feel better if they come up with something. Or then they go, well, I lost so and so. Like then they tell their story because they don't know what to say about yours. So
Yeah.
the intention isn't bad. I
No.
understand that people's intentions aren't negative. They're just trying. But so the intention's good. It's coming from a good heart, but it really doesn't, it's not helpful. And I think a lot of people, if we just got more honest and
I'm
real.
I'm wondering something. Do you think in our Western culture that we don't know how to grieve. I wonder if it's different in other cultures, if there's more permission to grieve.
That's interesting. That would be a fun topic to like research a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
That's interesting. I never thought about different cultures. Um, I know different cultures have very different ceremonies than
correct.
what we do. So
Yeah,
that would be really something fun to kind of check into. I can't speak to that because I don't know. But what I do know is that probably one of the biggest reasons today, I think, why people are suffering from anxiety and depression and just sad hearts is because we don't know how to grieve. We don't know. And we grieve lots of things. We grieve when we change a job. We grieve even when we have a child. We grieve. And it sounds mixed up because or a wedding. We get married, we grieve because and people don't grab that. And then they wonder like, why am I feeling so weird? And because they're grieving and they don't even know how to access the emotion that's there. So they just kind of stuff it down and but we don't know how to sit with stuff. We try to bury it or deny it or ignore it or whatever. And if we could just as a whole, as us humans, we could just learn how to allow ourselves the opportunity to feel sad when we feel sad. Instead of like, oh,
yes.
I gotta not feel sad today. I gotta get it together, you know? Why? Why?
Yeah.
Why not let the
You're
tears
so
out?
right in saying that we grieve many things. People can grieve the loss of a job. They grieve. This may sound funny to some people, but it was very real for me. I recently moved. I moved a year ago into a new house, a home that we wanted. It had all the things that we wanted about it, but I was very attached to my old home. I
Mm,
had a certain place for things, and I had just my routine. And when all of that went away, this is a year later, and I'm still finding myself missing things about this old house that was falling apart around me, that definitely had its issues, and there was a reason that we moved from it. But I still find myself missing those things. There's just certain things, that we can grieve and grieve the loss of many things.
yeah. Yeah. And grieving, people think grieving always has to be around something that's sad. Like I mentioned earlier, when you have a child or when you get married, those things are happy things for sure. But it's okay to grieve, kind of like, oh, I had my place that I lived by myself and I had quiet time here. You might miss, like you just said, you might miss those little things. It's
Mhm.
not bad or wrong. It's just because your life just took a massive transition. When we deal with those transitions, they are very big.
They
And
absolutely are.
yeah, we don't take the time to even acknowledge them half the time.
I used to teach a stress management course in a prison to prisoners, some of the most stressed out people on the planet, right? But if you look at the chart of all of the things that can create stress in somebody's life, it isn't just death. It isn't just the change of a job. And when you stack enough of these stressors onto somebody, now we move into what's called trauma. And we
Mm,
have trauma, suppressed trauma that people are running around with because they haven't been able to say, I feel sad, I feel disappointed. That's
right.
another one that we're not supposed to feel in our culture, right? We're not
Mm,
supposed to feel sad, disappointed, any of these quote unquote negative feelings. And so what happens is we repress them. And what are we? We're sad, we're disappointed, and we're
right.
not mentally healthy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then what happens is then it goes into our body
Oh,
because we hold
100%.
those, we store all that, right? And then it can show up as disease,
Mm,
illness, whatever. And we don't understand why.
yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that is very true that we store those in our body. And I was just thinking as you were talking about how interesting it is when someone dies and you um people often what I discovered just to go along with kind of this theme of what people don't talk about or don't acknowledge. um I have found that I got a lot of backlash for saying how I felt towards my late husband because I felt betrayed.
Oh, sure.
Really did. I felt so much betrayal, but I cannot tell you how many people you shouldn't feel that way. He was sick. He had a mental disease, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's probably true, but I can still feel how I feel. I'm still allowed to have
Yes.
my feelings, even if you don't like them, you know? And I thought that was so weird that people got so angry. And it's not, I have nothing against, I'm absolutely an advocate for mental health. I mean, that's why I'm a coach, because I want people to be able to be healed, right? Come from a place, live a life full of joy and healing with hope, you know? And it's so intriguing to me that that is probably one of the things that I've noticed when it comes to being a suicide survivor, is that that's what people don't want to talk about, is allowing the person who survived that situation to talk about how the vastness of how they feel, and the things like anger and betrayal and disappointment and so many of these things that are so valid, and they just kind of get pushed away. It's so weird how that's happening. I'd like to bring that more into light and make it more okay, because these are the people who are left here.
They're your
trying to,
feelings.
yeah,
And
they're
I've
trying
always
to live
believed
life.
that everybody is entitled to their feelings. It's what we do with those feelings that makes them good or bad. Feelings are just feelings. They're not good, they're not bad. They are just how we feel. Now, if I feel like I'm angry and I take that anger and I harm somebody, then I have an anger issue and there's a problem.
Right.
But it's okay to say, I feel angry. I
Yes.
feel betrayed. I feel hurt. I feel scared. Whatever emotion or feeling you're feeling is okay. We all have them. And for
Right.
somebody to say that they don't is false. They just they don't want to acknowledge it,
Right.
right?
And they don't want to be uncomfortable, because if they face
Yeah.
that emotion, that's hard work. It
It
is
is
hard.
hard work for
Yep.
sure.
There's healthy ways to release that emotion and heal from that. But most people don't know how to do it. So they become angry, or they flip it into something else, or they take it out, project, like you said earlier. And they just don't know how to move through it, like
But
move through it.
one of the healthy things, it sounds like you did, was that you got real raw and what'd you say, random, real raw
Random.
and random, and you just put these things out there. You said that other people came to you and said, that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was really surprising to me. Honestly, I was really taken aback. Um, it's funny. It's actually funny, the differences I noticed between Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, people like to beat you, and Facebook, people seem a little more receptive, which I thought was really weird. But I, the messages that I got were like, a lot of people were saying, the thing that I remember the most actually was, you're saying all the things I couldn't get out, that I was feeling, but I couldn't say, or I didn't know how to put into words. And that really touched me, because to be able to put words on something that's so deep, and such a deep wound is, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back or anything. It's just, if I can help them by putting words to it, and they feel like, oh my word, somebody gets it. Somebody else gets it,
Yes.
how I feel. It just, there's something about that, right? That's so like comforting.
Wow.
And it can really, it sort of bridges this gap, and it helps people realize that however they're feeling is okay. Like, they're allowed to be happy one day and laughing and finding joy in things, and the next day be sobbing on the floor. Like that, because that's what my life was like. When that first happened, there were days I was literally sobbing on my bathroom floor. And then there was other days where I got out of the shower and I'm listening to the birds. I remember this memory very distinctly, actually, because it was only a couple of days after. And I remember hearing the birds chirping away. And it was like, it was January. And I'm thinking birds in January. Okay. So, but I remember feeling so grateful for the birds because in the midst of the chaos and the horror that I was feeling, there were these birds that were still chirping. They were still doing their thing. And I love the sound of chirping birds.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking, thank you, God, for this, just this little glimmer, this little thing that I can just remember and think to myself, you know what? If the birds can keep chirping, even in January, then I can keep going. I can keep moving, you know?
Those little nuggets that remind us that life goes on for us. Those
Yes,
little things. That's so cool. And did you share that in one of your posts then?
I did. I remember distinctly sharing it and feeling just so grateful for the birds. And I also, I mean, there was a dichotomy there. That's probably one of the biggest things I got out of this whole process is the dichotomy that goes on in grief because you've got joy in one hand and you've got grief in the other, and they absolutely can coexist. People, that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I would love to drive home to people who are going through a grieving process is to understand you are allowed to hold both. You can. You can
Absolutely.
absolutely have joy and grief at the same time.
Oh,
And
how
people don't
true that
understand it.
is.
They don't think that's possible. But the thing is, I remember going back to the bird story, I remember thinking to myself, how ridiculous. Like, how ridiculous
Birds in
birds
January.
still get to chirp, but also how beautiful that the birds are chirping. Like it was just this weird moment where I thought, well, how ridiculous is this? These birds are chirping. Like, it's funny how you just, you know,
You went
think,
on. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Because we have those normal thoughts in life, no matter what, whether it's death or uh, on our jobs, in a stressful situation, at a wedding. I don't care what the situation is. Random thoughts still come into our mind. We still, we
yes,
may sit there and think, boy, the back of that guy's head doesn't look right as we're sitting in a funeral or
yeah.
at a wedding. And so we have all of these random thoughts. We just don't talk about them. And you were brave and you shared those things that were, to some people may have been a shock because you were willing to talk about them.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely a shock. And what was more shocking was actually the anger that I got from family members. You shouldn't talk about, like, trying to shame me into silence.
Mm.
Nobody, people don't need to know that it was suicide, and you don't need to give all this information, and you shouldn't be talking about this so much. And I thought to myself, there are people out there that are hurting,
Yeah.
and we need to help them.
Yeah.
And if he was still here, he would probably want at least for them to be helped.
Yes.
It so it's very, yeah, it's really it's so interesting. And then I found love in the middle of all that mess. And so I have this wonderful man that I have in my life now, and it's like,
Oh,
I mean, so I can attest to the joy and the grief happening at the same time. It's really true. It really is
yes.
true.
Yeah.
But people put aside joy as though they're not allowed to
Not
access it.
allowed. And that was what was going through my mind is I think that we feel as human beings in our society, that's why I'm very curious as to how they do it in other cultures. We
Mm,
feel in our society that we're not allowed, that if somehow we have a fun moment, joy, laughter, whatever it might be, a good moment that we want to share, that other people are going to think that we have betrayed the one that
mhm.
we've lost. And
Yeah.
we have to go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny how, that comes down to authenticity.
Mm.
And it's funny because it's actually what people end up getting the most out of when I coach them is authenticity, because
Mm.
that's my method. Is I want them to get to the most authentic version of themselves.
It's
And
fantastic.
we can't do that if we are, you know, masking everything. including our emotions, including our joy. And I think it's so funny how people are so quick to judge all that, as if they know, they judge how soon should you be in a relationship. You're not the boss. You don't get to decide that for me. I get to decide that, And I think it's funny how people put all these kind of weird, like unspoken rules on.
Unspoken rules.
Yeah, it's so funny how we do that. And so judgy and so, if you wait a year till you have a relationship, that's too soon still. Or some people say it's too soon or it's not soon enough or like you can't.
And then they judge the next relationship and say, well, you're rebounding,
right.
It's not going to be a good one because blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah. I don't know how many people out in your audience listen to Mel Robbins at all, but I love her little take on the let them. If you've never heard of it, look it up. Mel Robbins Let Them. Just look up Mel Robbins Let Them. It'll probably come right up. But she just says, if they're going to have their opinions about you, no matter what, people are going to think what they want to think, no matter what you do or say. So let them.
Yeah. What I've always said is that other people's opinions of me are none of my business. As soon as I make their opinions of me my business, then I'm miserable.
Right.
So I have to remember that their opinions belong to them. My opinions belong to me. So
yes.
I get to share only my opinions, not somebody else's.
Right. But the problem with that is that the problem with the idea of understanding that other people have all these opinions of us is that sometimes we kind of go into people pleasing mode, and that's not authentic to us. We're just trying to make other people happy or make them feel okay about how we respond. But it's not our job to make them feel okay about how we respond. How we respond is how we respond. And that's it. It doesn't have to meet their criteria of responses, and it's just fun. I just think it's so interesting.
I think so much of that, we can go down so many rabbit trails with that, but I think so much of that has to do with trauma response.
Yes.
So if we responded to people early in life, I deal a lot with people who had traumatic childhood. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if we respond to people in our childhood and it wasn't safe,
right?
They didn't accept our response, our authentic, you talk about the authentic self. They didn't accept our authentic response. They rejected it somehow, and it made us feel unsafe. Then as we grow into adults, we fear other people's responses to our authentic self.
Right.
And we learn, I think it's just, conditioned, we get conditioned to respond based on trauma. So yeah, there's so many layers to all of it. And grief grief for whatever reason is a subject that just is so uncomfortable for people. We would rather talk about anything but that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because why? I'll tell you why.
We're not taught about it. Why?
Well, that's true. Well, the one of the main reasons why people are so uncomfortable about grief is because grief is the precise time where you have to start setting boundaries like never before.
Oh, 100%.
Don't want to deal with boundaries. They don't. People take things so personally, and a lot of that is because of what you mentioned, the trauma, not feeling safe. So the moment they think someone's upset with them, they go into that trauma response behavior.
Right. Yes.
And usually it's some kind of pattern that they've adopted from, a young age or whatever. And so it can get really sticky. It's a very windy road because when you're grieving, you have to set boundaries. I had to right in the beginning because suicide is a shocking event. It's one thing when, and it's not that it's more important than anyone else's passing. It's just that it's shocking. And people, well, why? I don't understand. It's so confusing. And it often
we understand certain other forms of death. Somebody has a long-term illness We understand that the end result is death. Somebody in a horrific car accident, we understand that. But when somebody takes their own life, we're left with so many unanswered questions, so many unanswered questions. And then the whole thing of it, was there something else I could have done? You know,
Yeah.
there's so many layers to that I think that suicide is a lot more traumatic for somebody to deal with than any other type of death out there. And I'm going to go so far as to say that I think that's even more traumatic than a miscarriage or a stillbirth or something along those lines.
For me, I can verify, because I have had 3 miscarriages. So I can verify it is absolutely more traumatic, for sure. It is definitely more traumatic. There's definitely even more unanswered questions than a miscarriage, for sure.
Yes,
And it doesn't negate the validity, of course,
of course
of
not. Or
the
the
law.
loss.
Sure, right. It does
Loss
not
is
negate,
loss.
yeah, it doesn't change the feeling or the, so I can personally attest to that. But for sure, there's so much trauma there. Um, it's really, it's so much, it's even hard to wrap your head around,
Well, you made all of these posts and the thought came to you and you said, I should write a book. And you started that process. Now, I know your book is not out yet. And
Right.
normally we show somebody's books when they're on the show. And we're not going to be able to do that today. But I do want to talk about what the writing process was like for you in particular, on a couple of levels. I've written a book based on a traumatic experience that I was going through at the time. That's how the book was born. And it was very healing for me. As I wrote, I started to heal through this trauma. And I can't imagine what writing this book was like for you, because honestly, you'd written so much of it already in all of these posts that now it was a matter of assembling it. But did it bring up a lot of feelings for you, a lot of pain?
Oh, sure. I mean, well, there's one good thing about it, is that because I was writing so organically, uh, I was able to kind of, because it was spread out over a year, I really found there was definitely a lot of healing in it. But what I enjoyed most actually was the responses from other people, and not in a like I want validation kind of way. I enjoyed thoroughly hearing from those that felt like they could relate, and would say things like I had one lady who, just to give you an example, she sent me a message. This was actually okay. So as I'm remembering it now, I spoke at the service. She actually, and I got backlash for that too, speaking at the service. I shouldn't speak. Can't speak. I'm like, I'm gonna. And I did. I was the last person, and I spoke, and I shared what was on my heart. And someone took that and they actually used it at a group. I don't remember if it was a grief share or something else, but she ran a group, and
Wow.
she shared the whole speech with them, and she said you could hear a pin drop. So what you're doing with your post, and even just from you speaking at the service and writing these posts, she goes, you have no idea the impact you're making on people. So please don't stop. And that touched me. Like when I hear things like that, or when I hear someone say, I've struggled with suicidal ideation, and hearing you express your side has made me look at it totally different now.
So beautiful.
Now that you're talking about potentially saving somebody's life, or maybe me not saving them, but just the idea that it helped them maybe come out of that, or something to that effect. That's everything. If this book flops, that's fine. As long as if I could have that one person not make that choice, or if I could have one person that maybe their husband, died by suicide, and they get something out of my stuff where they feel less alone, like somebody's actually walking it through with
Wow.
them, then that means everything to me, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes.
So that's where my heart is to
Yes.
give people some kind of glimmer of hope, to give them something that they can grab. And everybody's going to grab something different, right? Like, because it'll speak to
Mm.
them in one way, or this person will catch this or whatever. And so that's what really warms my heart and lets me know that there's a higher purpose for what I'm doing. Um,
Yes. Yeah. I
so,
always say that the things that we go through in life have less to do with us than the people that we get to help as a result of what we have been through. Yeah.
100% agree.
hmm So we're going to take a break for just a minute, and we're going to hear from our sponsor, Victory Vision Publishing. And when we come back, I want to hear a little bit more about your writing process. So we will be back in just a moment. Hey everyone, are you stuck trying to figure out how to finish writing or publishing your book? Well, let me tell you about Victory Vision Publishing. Victory Vision Publishing is there to help you cross that finish line. They have package plans that are tailor-made just for your individual needs. They have learning opportunities where you can discover ways of overcoming some obstacles that you might have. Adam Fleming is a wonderful CEO, and they are a fully staffed team just waiting to help you edit, layout, maybe make a cover for your book. Go ahead and join their email list and check out some of the wonderful books and wonderful authors that they have already helped get published. Yep, Victory Vision is definitely the way to go if you feel stuck and just want some support in getting your book out to the world. You're only one book away from changing the world. victoryvision.org. Okay, we are back. We've been talking with Keadren, and she has been sharing with us her story of walking through grief and how this book that you are writing was born as a result of that. Am I right, Keadren?
Yes.
Okay. Well, tell us about the writing process. Did you, after you were done with this year of posting, did you sit down and um, did you use some of the posts in the book?
Yeah, so it was actually during the year. It was
Oh,
probably
okay.
around April or May, I think, that I reached out to, that was when the thoughts started happening. So from January when he passed to about May or so, April or May, I had reached out to the person who originally had started Victory Vision, and Julie Ballard. And I reached out to her and I was like, hey, so like, what if I just turn this into a book? And she goes, oh my word, let's jump on a call right now. I would love that. She goes, yes. So we're talking and she says, Adam Fleming just kind of took over as, I believe he's the CEO of Victory Vision. She said,
Yes.
he's kind of, everything's kind of being transferred over to him. I want you to meet, let's do a three-way meeting. So we did. And I ended up purchasing a package that actually got me coaching with Adam. So he became my writing coach.
Yeah.
So
And
he actually
he is excellent. We've had Adam on the show a couple of times,
he's
and he is
amazing.
just amazing. Yes, he is.
He's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing and really helped me walk through the process. I kind of started to get a vision building of what I wanted to do. So the way the book is going to be structured, there's a little bit of kind of free writing in the beginning, and then where I'm kind of speaking to the reader. And then all of the year's worth of real, raw, and random posts are going to be in there as they were written. And then I'm kind of writing this reflections section at the end because there's so many things. And that's the part, that's why I haven't finished it yet, because it's been difficult. Adam's had to kind of pull me back to be like, you're not fixing the world here. Like
Pick a direction.
yeah, because what do you say? How do you wrap up something so vast? How do you,
Yes.
because really what I would like to do is take each person, wrap my arms around them, and just kind of go, you know, I
Let's
get
walk through this together. Yeah.
it together. I understand what you're dealing with, but it's not, I have to remember it's not my job to fix everybody. And, as a coach, I have to constantly remember that it's not my job to fix it. What I want to accomplish most is help people understand the vast dichotomy that happens as they walk through grief, and to learn to like give themselves permission to experience all of that, and also to just so that they don't feel so alone. If they can read some pieces, even if it's not all of the book but just parts, wow, oh my word, I get that feeling. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad somebody said that. I've been feeling this and haven't known how to say it. If I can get that kind of reaction where they feel less alone, because out of anything, I've had lots of loss. I've lost my dad, I've lost my sister, I lost a fiance. I've lost people to cancer, I've lost people in shocking ways. I've had miscarriages. I've experienced lots of different types of loss. But I can say that suicide is probably the most perplexing loss of all. And it can leave you with such a loneliness. It's like an indescribable loneliness. So it's a spouse and it's suicide. Those two, I think, are the highest level of, not that you can put a level on grieving, but hopefully that makes sense what I say. But that's what I hope to, I want people to experience. Oh, I'm so glad somebody else said that, because I feel that way. That they don't feel like they're all by themselves suffering in silence.
Have you had that? Have you had that for yourself, though? It's really easy to want people to respond to us. And I'm hearing what you're saying, because when I wrote this book that I told you about, it had to do with a COVID experience that I went through, very traumatic. And I wrote the book. I don't think I've sold maybe 10 copies of that thing. It's not something, because really it was just a healing project for me. But one woman got that book that I shared it with, and she was going through a worse situation, I think, even than I went through with COVID, and just really, really affected her deeply. And she read the book and she said to me, I don't feel alone anymore. There's somebody else out there who gets it, who understands. And we just, we were able to connect with each other. And so we all want that. We want other people to relate to us. But has there been somebody for you that has said something or acted a certain way or given out some type of information and you said, oh, thank goodness I'm not alone?
Wow. That's a tough question. That's a tough question. And it's tough because I have been blessed with a handful of people that have been so good to me and so encouraging and so uplifting. And I can specifically think of two very dear girlfriends of mine that have been able to articulate, and they've not been through what I've been through. And yet they both were very good at giving me permission to feel however I needed to feel that particular day. And that alone, it's not necessarily something that they said exactly. It's just like I'm sitting with you. I'm in the mud with you. I'm and sometimes that's all people need. If somebody is stuck in a mud pile and they got their hip waders on, but it's way up here, right? And they are in it and it's deep. The best thing you could ever do for that person, get their hip waders on and go in there and stand in the mud with them.
Instead of trying to pull them out.
Right. And just be there. Because what will happen is eventually that person is going to want to get out of the mud. Somehow they're going to want to get out of the mud. And when they're ready to get out of the mud, they've already got their friend right there. Okay, I'm ready too. Let's go. And you go together. Right. And that's the best gift you could ever get when you're grieving.
Yes.
Is to have somebody who doesn't rush you through it, who doesn't expect any certain kind of behavior or way out of you, doesn't expect any kind of emotion, a certain kind of emotion out of you. They just let you feel whatever you're feeling and allow you the time and the space to process it. But they
That's
sit
beautiful.
with you while you're processing it. And that's the best gift you give somebody. Just show up.
It
That's why I
is.
said like a hug. Like in the beginning, I said, just give them a hug and don't say anything. Because sometimes that hug, that long, beautiful, tight hug can speak all the things that your heart could never, ever put into words.
Oh,
And
it's so beautiful.
we don't value
So
that
much.
enough,
Yeah.
and I'm so lucky that I'm so blessed that I have these beautiful people in my life that are so sweet, that will, I mean, I even had a friend that she was, she struggled with some ideation, and she called me to share, like, because she wanted me to understand as best she could what might have been going through his mind.
Yes.
From her point of view, to share that with me actually helped a great deal, because then I felt like, okay, now I've got a piece of kind of understanding, and I feel like I can come back to that when my brain goes all these other directions. It kind of helped me realize that trying to understand that the depth of that sorrow is really difficult, and I may not ever understand it, but it gave me a glimpse. It gave me some words to put to it. And so for people to take their time out to share that was so touching.
So it's not just you sharing all of your personal feelings, but it is other people then coming into your life and sharing a piece of themselves with you.
Yes.
I think for some people, you said that sometimes you have to remember that you can't fix everybody. And it is so easy for some people to get into fixer mode, but they don't allow other people to, for lack of another term, fix them. Not that you're broken. You're not broken because you're
Right.
grieving. That's a very normal thing. But to allow other people to come into your life and let you relate to them rather than always needing other people to relate to you. It can be a challenge sometimes to not be the strong one, right?
Yes. And I often tell people, the most important thing you can do is heal yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because then we can help other people heal.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't really help somebody else if we
Right.
haven't found our own way out of the mud. I liked your analogy. So
Yeah. And it's, it's a beautiful thing to sit with someone in their grief. It really is. It's a beautiful thing. And there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Having people just be there and just, I mean, I remember one of my closest friends, she was around a lot. She kept coming over almost every day for like a couple of weeks. She was coming over as much as possible. And I was crying so much I was running out of tissues. And she's like, "What do you need?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just need tissues. I just don't have enough tissues." And she's like, I'm on it. And she went to she got like a crap ton of tissues.
Oh.
And it seems like such a small thing, but look how I remembered that, because she saw the need and she just took care of the need.
Yes.
It wasn't like, well, are you sure? I mean, you have 20 boxes of tissues already. It was like, nope. She wants
That's what you said you wanted.
Yeah. And and it's funny because but when she went and got tissue, she also got me food. which she's like, I just figured the boys might like this, or you might want to have this, or I got you wine and because you might want to have a drink and whatnot. Like just little things like that. Just do something, you know, when people do something, even though they don't know what you need exactly, but they do something to show you that they care.
They
It's an act
care.
of love. It's an
Yes, it
act of
is.
love. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful because
Uh,
it's authentic and they're trying and it's lovely.
yes.
So
Keadren, tell us where you are in the process of this book, because I think so many people are going to want to read this when it comes out. I know it's not done yet. Victory Vision Publishing has been helping you with
yes,
this. And I think you said that you were still developing a title. So we don't want to give out any titles yet because that could change, right?
yes, yeah.
But where are you? When do you think this will be wrapped up? Do you have
So
an estimated date?
it will definitely be published this year for sure. I'm actually hoping by the end of summer we might be into
Oh,
actually putting it out. So I'm on the last part and that's the toughest part, you know, because I'm trying to wrap everything up that I want to drive home. And, you know, once that's done, we'll be getting it right into the editing process and, you know, moving into the publishing process. So
yes.
I've already, you know, Victory Vision is going to be helping me with that publishing process. And I am going to be actively working towards that. So I'm really hoping by fall, the latest, that it'll be out
Wonderful.
there.
Yes.
So, but I don't have an exact date, but definitely this year.
Oh.
For
In the meantime, while we're all waiting for this book to come out, I do want, because I know that you want to help people and you have such a wonderful heart and a wonderful opportunity. So if people are looking to get some coaching from you, then pardon me, I have to tell everybody these allergies are absolutely killing me, and I have all of this drainage going on from it. It's just
Yeah, allergies are rough.
miserable.
Yes.
The pollen count has been off the charts for the last few days, and I am definitely feeling it. Okay, so this is Glimmer Healing Collective. This is your Facebook page, and people can go there and send you a message. So if you are out there and you are interested in Keadren coaching you, maybe you're going through something that today you heard her speak about and you're relating to, I would say definitely go over there. We're going to leave that link, Keadren, in the description of this video so people can find you. And then hopefully they can stay abreast of what you have going on. And when your book comes out, they
Yes.
can get a hold of that. So tell us a little bit about Glimmer Healing Collective and what you do there.
Yeah, so, you know, the former business name was Coaching with Keadren. That's how I started. And I just recently changed the name to Glimmer Healing Collective. And I chose that name very purposefully because glimmers refer to glimmers of joy, glimmers of hope. Healing, the word healing speaks for itself. Collective is because we can't heal by ourselves. We just can't. It's very difficult. It's I believe that we were created to have connection and to help each other. And so I have Glimmer Healing Collective business page. I also have a private group. You can find it publicly, but you just have to request, you know, to join it. But that's a group where, you know, I'm posting coaching tips. We talk, there's lots of discussion about healing. And I'm starting to do some art therapy classes now. I've created a hybrid coaching method that includes somatic experience and exercises, which somatic, for people that aren't aware, it's just a body awareness teaching to help people understand how they can release emotions that are trapped. And it really is a beautiful way to tap into our innate knowledge of that.
I believe that there are a lot of people who are suffering from illnesses that I think they would benefit. Some of those illnesses would be lessened, if not disappear, if they dealt with some of, I go back to trauma, that's my word, but if they dealt with some of that trauma, some of the pain, some of the grief that they may be experiencing. So it sounds
Yes.
like you're tapping into some of that as well.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And so I couple the standardized talking coaching therapy with some somatic work mixed in, and also art therapy mixed in as well, because we want to cover, each person has a different need. And so I want to make sure that I'm covering all the bases, because
So
I think
it,
what I
it
see
sounds like you individualize and tailor your coaching sessions to
very much so,
because
very much
no two people are the same, right?
exactly.
And what
Exactly.
works for one person does not necessarily work for another person. And I think
Yes.
that unfortunately, there are coaches out there who have one system, and you can sign up for just their system, but that system may not work for everybody. And so I like that you see people in a more holistic way and as individuals and with individual needs. I like that.
Yeah. And we need to stop just only treating the mind,
Mm,
because oftentimes we forget about our body.
yes.
But our body is where we store everything. So
Yes.
it's really
Yes.
important that we approach it from that holistic way, the whole person, the body, the mind, the spirit, all in one. We are a triune being, because that's how God created us. And so it's important to treat us as such. We have to heal the whole self, not just a part.
Mm, I love that. We're going to go ahead and leave that link to that page in the description of this video. I want people to reach out to you.
Thank
But,
you.
well, Keadren, we are running out of time, and I know that I could sit and just listen to you talk forever because you have so many things to say and you have so much insight to leave with people. And I can tell that you don't want anybody to leave this conversation not gotten something out of it, because it's important. It is important. We live in a world where people are hurting, and sometimes we don't know what they're hurting about. And so if we can just put something out there that will help them, it would make a difference. So before we go today, I want to ask you, is there any parting words that you have? What is it that you would like to say to our audience today? And typically we're only talking about the writing process on this channel, but you have transcended that. This conversation has gone far beyond the writing process. And I think you have more to say to people than how to write a book. And I would like for you to share some nugget of insight that our audience can grasp and hold on to before they leave today.
Oh my. How do you whittle that down into one nugget?
Yeah. You have 4 seconds. Chop, chop. No, I'm
4
kidding.
seconds. Okay. Oh my gosh. Sit with it.
Mm,
Sit with it. It's okay to sit with it, because there is going to be joy. Joy does come.
yeah.
And if we allow ourselves to sit with how we're feeling, then it allows us the ability to move through how we're feeling, just like the writing process. If we sit with it and acknowledge it through writing, we're acknowledging it. We're allowing it to move through us rather than it getting stuck. And we're just sitting in the stuckness. If we sit with the emotion, we can feel it, acknowledge it, because emotions just want to be acknowledged and honored. If we can just acknowledge and honor them, then we can move through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, don't be
Oh,
afraid to sit with it and be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. The best things come from that.
we spend too much time trying to ease our discomfort, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's our biggest hurdle in this whole world with all of us
Yeah.
humans, is that one thing.
Wow. Well, you've had so many good things to say to us today, and I really do appreciate you being here. I would like to have you back as soon as your book is published. Definitely want to have you back so we can talk about the book itself
Thank
for
you.
sure.
I would love that. Very honored. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for being here today and sharing so much of yourself with us. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Keadren Petrone, and she is talking to you today about her grief process through suicide. And she is writing a book that I'm very, very excited to get as soon as that comes out. And when her book is out, we will definitely be sharing that with you. But I appreciate you giving up a portion of your time to be with us today and for hearing from Keadren. Thank you so much. As always, have a wonderful day and God bless.